Hi, good morning, and welcome to the Sidebar with Gary Barton. I, of course, am your host, Gary Barton. Today, we're going to be talking about child custody arrangements. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Sidebar with Gary Barton. Today we're going to be talking about child custody arrangements. What does that mean? That means what type of schedule am I going to have with my children's father or children's mother going forward post-divorce or post-suit affecting parent-child relationship. Now, there are numerous ways that you can set up schedules. I will tell you as a rule of thumb, the biggest and most important thing to take away from this is if I can reach an agreement with the other party in this suit, that agreement can be transcribed into final orders that will reflect what you both have agreed to moving forward. So if you want to come up with something crazy, as long as it's not against the children's best interest, we can certainly put that schedule in place. Now, if we can't agree, again, this is when we cannot agree. In this area, most of the time, the judges are not going to put somebody in a position to actually be awarded a 50-50 relationship moving forward in the event that you can't agree with your opposing party. And so what does that mean? Well, that means realistically, the judges are going to choose one parent over the other to be the primary custodian of the children. That means the primary residence of the children will be established with that particular parent that the judge chooses. Now, some jurisdictions have started leaning more towards a 50-50, but it is a very slow process. And in this area, most of the time, the judges are going to pick one over the other. A lot of this decision is based upon schedules. It's based upon what has been the status quo and based upon, of course, what is in the children's best interest moving forward. A lot of judges, unless you live literally right next door down the street, don't like the idea of a 50-50 because it truly can be stressful for children to go, for instance, 1 week on with mom and 1 week on with dad, especially if you guys live 30 miles away. That oftentimes is not truly feasible as a 50-50. To take that into consideration when you're discussing relationships and arrangements with the opposing party. Now, what we oftentimes are going to see as the default, this is the default for most judges in most circumstances that say, hey, this parent is going to be given a standard possession schedule or standard possession order. The standard possession order is going to be first, third, and fifth weekends of the month, starting at Friday at 6 p.m. until Sunday at 6 p.m. The fifth weekend of the month only happens a few times a year. So this is oftentimes what you'll hear on TV, what you've seen on movies as the every other weekend parent. Now, in Texas, you are allotted every single Thursday for 2 hours, usually from 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. There can be variances there depending on schedules for work, but that is going to be the standard possession schedule that oftentimes is the default in the event we can't reach an agreement with each other and a judge is forced to pick one parent over the other. Now, we oftentimes are going to alternate holidays. There are variances in that schedule that can occur. So for instance, you can do, for instance, mom can get Thanksgiving, and then dad would get Christmas, and then the next year we flip and continue that schedule, or we can split them. So for instance, if your children get out of school on the Friday and are off all week for Thanksgiving, you can take the children from that Friday afternoon until Wednesday, and then the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, flop it to the other parent until that Sunday, and then the next year they would flip that particular individual week schedule. And you could do the same thing for Christmas and spring break, depending on the pushback that you get from the parent and whether or not you can agree. But the standard is to flip-flop the holidays moving forward. Now, there have been pushes to extend the standard possession schedule, and we call that ESPO, or Extended Standard Possession Order. And that extended schedule basically just gives one extra day per week. So instead of starting on Friday at 6 p.m., we start Thursday after school, Thursday at 6 p.m. until that Sunday, still doing the first, third, and fifth weekends of the month. Now, what do we do during the summer in the event that we are on a standard possession schedule or an extended standard possession schedule? So long as you live within 100 miles of each other, then you're oftentimes going to be dealing with a 30 days uninterrupted for the non-custodial parent. So if you're the one that sees the children every other weekend for the most part, you will get uninterrupted time during this summer. That's usually going to be 30 uninterrupted days. Now, most standard possession schedules are going to put a big deadline on your paperwork. April 1st is that deadline. Make sure you mark it in your calendar every year. April 1st, I have to provide those 30 days that I want my children uninterrupted during that time period. So you want the whole month of June, make sure you give that notice by April 1st to the other parent. You want the whole month of July, again, make sure you give that notice by April 1st to the other parent, designated in those times that you will have your children uninterrupted throughout that duration of the summer. Now, if you can't do that, sometimes it will be easier to just stay with that every other weekend schedule, and that's perfectly acceptable so long as you guys coordinate and you work that out. And the idea, again, of a 50-50 oftentimes is something that most people desire. 50-50 is difficult to get agreed to because here's the major issues that we run into. This typically all boils down to finances. In the event that you have a spouse demanding a 50-50, it's probably because they are the higher income earner and don't want to have to pay child support. That's correct. If you're on a 50-50 relationship, you can be relieved of your obligation to pay child support to the other parent. And so most of the time, when we're dealing with a strong desire to have 50-50, it's because that parent doesn't want to deal with child support. And so in the event you do want to go forward on a 50-50 and you feel like it's feasible, number one, number two, it's in the best interest of my children, then by all means, let's construct a schedule that works. What type of schedules are out there? You can do week on, week off. Hypothetically, you could do 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. You could do what we call a 2-2-3 schedule, which is very common. 2 days on with mom, 2 days on with dad, 3 days on with mom, and then the next week we would flip. That would mean that 2 days on with dad, 2 days on with mom, 3 days on with dad, and you just continue that cycle. In the event you do a 50-50 on a 2-2-3 schedule, week on, week off, what other variances you ever might want to come up with, that oftentimes is not going to affect the summer. You're just going to roll through that the entirety of the calendar year, even including holidays, unless you come up with specific schedules to address holidays that you want different. But that, in a nutshell, is what child custody arrangements look like for the most part in Texas. If you have questions, that's what we're here for. Pick up the phone, call us in the San Antonio area at 210-5 in the Austin area, 512-THE-FIRM. We are here to answer your questions and walk you through what these scenarios would look like in the event you have to go through a divorce, separation, and deal with the other parent of your children in court orders. By the way, click below, click like, click subscribe, go forward, follow us on all social media. We are here to address your questions and hopefully give you answers to a lot of questions that you might have lingering in your head in the event you need to go forward and deal with a family law matter. I'm Gary Barton. Thanks for tuning in to the Sidebar. We'll see you next time.